Hello and welcome to the NDTV Dialogues, a conversation of ideas. Tonight we look at the big game changer reform, the goods and services tax. How will it actually work? How will India change? How will our economy get a boost? And what will be the impact on India's growth rate? Who better to discuss it with than my current panel? With me is Amitabh Kant, CEO of Niti Aayog. Also with me, Praful Patel, former Heavy Industries and Aviation Minister, currently NCP MP. I'm also joined by Derek O'Brien, who heads the Rajya Sabha Parliamentary Party, the Trinamool. He was on the Select Committee as well for this bill. You spoke in Parliament this week very eloquently on what you called the GST. You gave different definitions of Girgit Samjhauta tax. You made the point about Mr. Chidambaram and said the Congress did the go-slow tax. And you said that people's parties' positions depended on where they were sitting in respective governments. GST as a game changer. Do you think that's validated at the point? And you raised certain points. And what about the states? What about central taxes which were never actually paid? They're owed thousands of crores owed to the states. How will that actually play out?
You know, as a political party on the ground, who've promised this GST 4 times in our manifesto, there's no use anybody now saying we are for the idea of GST. We are more concerned about the implementation of GST. And since I have had the privilege of being on the Select Committee, and my colleague is now the chairman of the Empowered Committee. So I have actually seen this. The Congress, the GST, the bill which they brought in 2011, you know, and how they had the idea in 2006.
Of course, Praful was in the cabinet at that time, so he can't escape responsibility.
I said it on the floor of Parliament that I was always for, and we were always for it.
But now he's wearing full white, so he's okay. So I think really what happened here is, for us in the Select Committee, you know, firstly, the BJP also have changed their position, so I only blame the Congress party. The BJP have said all things. The leader of the House in Rajya Sabha said he doesn't even need the Rajya Sabha now, our friend Mr. Arun Jaitley. So that these two. But the parties in the middle, and we saw this in the Select Committee, this bill, if GST is implemented, you've got to thank that group in the middle. Anyone can take the credit, we don't mind. But there's a group in the middle who made it practical. Mr. Chidambaram was talking about his perfect bill. You can wait till Lululand and you won't get your perfect bill. Of course, this is not you can't have these perfections. I was wondering, you know, Sonia, we should have actually had a hidden camera in the Select Committee.
No work would have got done then.
No. If we had 11 or 12 meetings, and you should have seen the kind of stonewalling which the 3 representatives of the Congress were doing. No different from what the BJP were doing when they were in opposition. And you say parties like the Trinamool and the SP and the BSP and all these parties.
How obstructionist and
yeah, but we were so consistent, and now I really believe that I don't want to talk about the past, it's not worth it, and we're not here to do any politics because there are no politicians here in that sense, or from the Congress and BJP, so I'm so comfortable. But on a serious note, now we have to look ahead. And what's the way ahead? The way ahead is that on the front foot, the chief ministers like Mamta Di, Nitish, Kejriwal, everyone, they're saying, I want to bring you those 16 states, bring the bill in November to Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. Now, in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, already there shouldn't be any change of tactics, because it needs to pass quickly in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. Because again, a money bill, finance bill, all bakwas. Now we need to pass it, and I'm sure all the brilliant bureaucrats across the country will make this happen.
What about the rate, Derek? I just want to, because we've been discussing, what about the rate and this worry that, you know, the new rate will mean higher inflation? What do you feel that the rate should be ideally?
The rate is very interesting, because if you read the BJP election manifesto, it talks about a rate of 12 to 14%. Now Congress have come up with a rate of 18%. I'll tell you my view on the rate, which is also a kind of a federal view. Listen, we are running government in the state. We will, the GST Council, the GST Council is a federal body. Actually, the GST Council is it's a quasi-political body, because that is, so what's the problem? So on the 30th of August, there is a meeting of the GST Council. I read about it in the media. I didn't ask Dr. Mitra, don't believe me, but there is a meeting. Now, when this Empowered Committee morphs into the GST Council, the decisions will happen there. And that's the way, this is true federalism. So the rate will evolve. But the Congress party first wanted to put it in the constitutional amendment.
see, there is...
Praful, can I make one just quick point? Because on this compensation to the states. Now, I know when you're giving compensation to states and you've got some products which are exempt, it becomes quote-unquote little imperfect. But the Congress party at no point in the select committee meeting ever mentioned compensation. After everybody brought it up, then they said, okay. But I don't want to tutu mema between the Congress and the BJP. I am very clear that the implementation has to happen in Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha in November, so April 1 doesn't become April Fool. Praful, just to add one point, I know Amitabh wants to come in. The overall broad policy from what I've heard is that the mandate or the way ahead of this council is to bring the rate down. That's their thinking. So we have to, it'll be done in that framework.
Yeah. And I think the atmosphere of trust and everybody wanting it to succeed. Amitabh, Derek, do you agree with that? Is it the magic bullet?
No, there's no, see, there
is no magic bullet.
1 minute. Yeah. I think, you know, after GST, within half an hour of GST passing, there was a tweet which said, we are very happy, we support GST and the small and the micro industries also. I think it will be a great boon for small and micro industries, and that's a play which will come in again to the GST bill, not part of the amendment, where we are looking at a number, you know, around 1.5 crores, so turnover. So below that, those people will be in the ambit of the state, because we are very clear you cannot have a dual. You cannot have state and center and center and state. So we're looking at, to even for the small, to add to what Mr. Kant had said, to add to that will be 1.5 crore or less. So those with that turnover will be actually taken by the state. We have to arrive at that number. So, you know, I know they'll say after that there'll be inflation for 6 months and 9 months. But Sonia, I want to tell everyone who's for GST or against GST that it works, it cuts both ways, because there are 5 countries, I can give you an example, which won elections after GST, and there are 5 countries where they lost elections after GST. We've got no elections coming up for 5 years.
Derek O'Brien, has this been one of the toughest bills you've ever had to work on, even in a select committee? Because it's really aspects like these which come up even as you're actually discussing it and taking it forward that are so crucial. The point on the middle class, the point on services, and when we're looking at it as a win-win for goods, are we looking at it for services? Are we looking at thinking it through enough when we look at, say, the IT industry?
I've never thought of it that way, but coming to think of it, well, what? Land acquisition. Okay, I was on the select committee for land acquisition, and FDI, where I was on the opposing side. Praful and I were on different sides of the table, because as much as we love and we support and we want GST, we as a Trinamool Congress and Mamta Di, we oppose the FDI. So I think if you're asking me the first question you answer, which is the most difficult, the easiest was land acquisition, because that was such a monumental blunder. I think even the people in the government in the select committee were not even serious. So that was, after the first meeting, you can make out that this is a walk in the park. Yeah, GST, I think what you were saying is, you know, we didn't get into the implementation too much in the select committee. At this point, but since now we've all become diploma holders, or at least diploma holders on the subject, we are aware that there will be some implementation issues. For example, this 3 registrations is going to be one issue. There is issue of when one company sends goods to its subsidiary, what happens? There is some process there which has to be worked out. Compliance is going to be one issue. There's another complicated technical issue about there's some ambiguity over the definition of supply and value of taxable supply. But I'm not getting into those details because I'm not an economist. So I think the bureaucracy and the people like you, sir, will sort all this out. But in terms of tough, I think this was easily the most interesting, because we had these 2, what they say depends on, what their stand is depends on where they sit. So we had this 2. And, you know, that's why I think you should actually record those, because then you would have seen the filibustering, then you could have played those old Rajya Sabha tapes where Arun Jaitley is opposing, you know, GST, and all the old tapes of the current Prime Minister, his Finance Minister of Gujarat. So it's very, very interesting. It's been a learning process. And I think overall, I think everyone has kind of agreed that it's not perfect, but let's get on with this.
Of course. To do it. I'm going to leave the final words with Derek O'Brien tonight. Derek, someone described this as a reverse Brexit moment, and that also may sum it up in a way. But for you, one, the importance of this as a significant, say, landmark step. I mean, Arun Jaitley is described as the most significant indirect tax reform. Is described as the biggest reform since 1991. Separate the hyperbole from the reality and tell us your final thoughts on it.
I think that's a good question you asked me, but just one quick point on that. You know, you guys make a big thing about these parliamentary debates and how it was debated, but the real nitty-gritty, believe me, gets done on the select committee.
Away from the television camera.
Yeah, a select committee, and also give credit to where it's due to those empowered group of finance ministers. They also like really strong, so that's where the credit. Or a parliamentary debate, you guys are plugging in and going live, and we're all, but the action...
And to Pranab Mukherjee, the President of India, who also brought it at one point.
So number one, credit has to go to everybody else and all the bureaucrats, but the select committee really did a lot of hard work and they empowered. Okay. Now these terms you all are using, all these terms about what game changer and this thing, let's get real. You know, there are still, we have the highest kids in this country about malnutrition. We have lakhs of schools where there is one teacher. You know, there are so, I don't want to bring all, but this is the reality.
Of course.
So this is not some magic bullet which is going to take away all these issues.
Yes.
So I think, you know, we need to put it in that perspective. And the real challenge now we've done legislation, somebody had an idea, now the real challenge is going to be the implementation. But the bigger picture for me, beyond all this, beyond GST, to me, this is opening up a new chapter for 2017, 18 and 19 and beyond for legislation. The legislation now is, it is not camouflaged centralism anymore. It has to be this federal power,
which will
or the federal force, which is going to be a very important part in government decision making. Today it's GST. There are going to be many other chapters to be written in modern Indian history, and the federal parties, if you may call, we will play a responsible role.
The state's rewriting Indian democracy, an interesting note to end on. Thank you all very much for being part of this dialogue.